All right, so these midterms are the first nationwide election since Donald Trump began spreading the big lie following his loss to Joe Biden back in 2020. And that lie of a stolen election that we all know wasn't stolen fueled the violent insurrection at the Capitol on January the 6th. And it is still creating an atmosphere in which the future of democracy is in doubt and the threat of violence and intimidation hangs in the air. Some January 6 rioters were explicitly looking for House Speaker Nancy Pelosi that day, yelling, "Where's Nancy?" as they stormed the halls of our Congress. Two sources briefed on the violent incident tell NBC News that phrase was uttered by the assailant who spoke into Speaker Pelosi's San Francisco home in the middle of the night on Friday and then assaulted her husband, Paul, with a hammer. Speaker Pelosi was in D.C. at the time, but is now back in San Francisco to be with her husband, who is expected to recover after undergoing surgery for his injuries. Now, we still don't know for sure what the attacker's motive was, but the San Francisco Police Department said last night, quote, "This was not a random act. This was intentional." Let's bring in our Democratic candidates. Congressman Pat Ryan of New York. He is now in the race for New York's 18th district. Texas State Representative Jasmine Crockett, who is running in Texas's 30th congressional district. Former New York Congressman Max Rose, who is trying to reclaim his seat right here in New York's 11th district, and Oregon State Representative Andrea Salinas, the Democratic candidate in Oregon's 6th congressional district. It's great to have all four of you with us. This is kind of an unprecedented moment to have all four of you on the show, so we're very fortunate to have this wide-ranging conversation. Congressman Ryan, I'd like to start with you. As a member of the Democratic delegation under Speaker Pelosi, I just want to get your reaction to these dangerous developments this week and your reaction to the attack.
Thanks for having us. It is heinous and unacceptable, and I think it speaks to how toxic our politics have become, that this political violence would even be on the table whatsoever. I mean, when I signed up to do public service as an Army officer, I knew my life would be at risk, but I did not expect as a member of Congress that would be the case. So we have to figure out how to get back to a sense of dignified disagreement where we can go back and forth constructively.
State Representative Crockett, your reaction to the attack on Speaker Pelosi's husband and you know, the lack of civility in our current politics.
Yeah, it's just another level of hypocrisy that we see coming from the right. Unfortunately, right now, we know that the right continues to say that they are the party of law and order. But every time we see some sort of violence, especially political violence, is actually coming from the right. We know what happened on January 6th. We know that they were not supporting law enforcement on that day. We know that they weren't supporting law enforcement when they decided to pass these crazy gun laws that they passed in states like Texas. And we know that they have not taken that same hard-line stance against violence as relates to Speaker Pelosi and her husband. In fact, we saw so many of them just going back on the campaign trail and continuing with their rhetoric, their very dangerous rhetoric. And so if we really want to get to who really is the party of law and order, I don't think that there's a question about the fact that Democrats are leading the way.
Former Congressman Rose, let me ask you, as you try to reclaim your seat, you ran in 2018. It seems like a lifetime ago, just in terms of where our politics have evolved from, even though 2018 was very contentious and compared to what we're seeing now. How has the political rhetoric changed in this country just in the span of the past 4 years?
It's only gotten worse. And the threat of violence has only gotten worse. And a big part of it is the fact that we now doubt, particularly when you look at the extremist right, which side they're going to fall upon when it comes to questions that used to be just absolutely normal, like the approving the results of an election, or being willing to criticize people after they storm the Capitol and force elected officials to literally run for their lives and injure hundreds of police officers. What's very scary right now is so many officials and those running for office, it seems that all they care about is winning the next election. They don't care about the Constitution. They don't care about our democracy. They certainly often don't care about issues of public safety. And that, to me, is not just sad and disgraceful, but it's scary. We have to do everything we can to fix it.
State Representative Salinas, how do you keep focused on the needs of your constituents when there is so much dangerous noise, as we were just hearing here from former Congressman Rose, on the other side of the aisle?
Yeah, for me, it is really talking to voters about the issues that matter. They're done and tired of politicians putting politics first and not people. And right now, this is what we are seeing. And Republicans are dangerous. This is really extreme when people are being harmed. And you know, my thoughts and prayers go out to Speaker Pelosi and her spouse for a full and speedy recovery. But we shouldn't be thinking about this. We should be thinking about the needs of the constituents that I am trying to serve in this 6th congressional district. I mean, you know, we're our focus should be on affordable housing, on the cost of living that we're facing right now, on access to abortion and a climate-friendly future. And we can't talk about this because the right has hijacked safety, and they are putting at risk people's lives.
Congressman Ryan, your voters and your constituents, some of these issues that we're dealing with are nationwide. Some of them are more localized. What are you hearing from your constituents about what concerns they have as the midterm approaches?
I think there are two twin imperatives right now that folks want us to deliver on. One, we have to provide economic relief. The cost of everything, gas, groceries, housing, healthcare going up. We have to continue to deliver, and we have been delivering. We have to continue to deliver even more relief, capping and lowering prescription drug prices, cutting the gas tax, and so on and so forth. The other piece, though, that can't get lost in this, we have fundamental rights and American freedoms under threat. Abortion rights and reproductive freedom ripped away. We have to both deliver relief and fight for rights. And we shouldn't force any American to choose one or the other. We are the party that will deliver and are delivering on both of those.
State Representative Crockett, you recently said we've got to stop being so conservative in the Democratic Party and actually be more aggressive about going after every single voter. Expand on that for us. What did you mean by it?
Yeah, no, absolutely. You know, so often we sit there and we wait for the voters to come in, and there's a lot of voters that are just tired. They're really tired of hearing from politicians on the left and the right. They honestly are just trying to figure out who really cares about them. And sadly, what we see is this fear mongering that's going on. We've got the fake fear that's coming from the right. And honestly, on the left, we really need to talk about the factual fears, right? They're making up things like trans children are going to be a problem, or that there's a problem with women deciding what they're going to do with their bodies. Those are all fake fears. But we have factual fears over our democracy, factual fears over the fact that we have children, specifically in the state of Texas, that are sadly enough being raped almost daily, yet they will not be able to seek the reproductive health that they need, and they will be victimized again in a state like Texas. So we've got to push hard, and we've got to push back on the Republicans and make sure we tell them that the facts are really on our side.
Let me play for you a soundbite of former President Barack Obama, who I still think is a master communicator, one of the greatest communicators in the Democratic Party and all of American politics, to be quite honest. Let me play you this soundbite. This was from Milwaukee just a few hours ago.
The fundamental issue you should be asking yourself right now is, who will fight for you? Who cares about you? That's the choice in this election. All the other stuff is surface stuff. It's distraction.
He had a lot of very powerful points throughout the 45 minutes or so he spoke. How does what he say on that level translate to voters in your district?
He's so good. I mean, it's
so good. We're reminded every 2 years when he hits the campaign trail about just how much of a master communicator he is.
Right.
I think more Democrats should be messaging like him.
No, there is no doubt. And he hits the president hits the nail on the head. But let's take it to the second question and the third question. You look just at the extremist Republican Party's votes. It tells you everything you need to know that they are not on the side of the American people. How could you claim that you're for public safety and then vote against universal background checks? How could you claim you're for public safety and then vote against banning assault weapons? A weapon I carried in combat, Pat carried in combat, has no place being sold in the United States of America. How could you say that you're on the side of the American people when it comes to lowering prices, but defend oil companies when they're price gouging the American consumer? And then finally, how could you say that you're a patriot, but then when it comes time to actually certify a free and fair election, you'd rather suck up to the former president who literally just tried to kill you? These folks right now are not fighting for the American people. They're actually rooting against the American people because they think that any pain they may feel is potentially to their electoral gain. That's the only reason why they never propose any substantive solutions. So all of us candidates are eager to hear President Obama make more of those speeches because he's absolutely correct.
Yeah, and I think he's got a few more before the midterms. State Representative Salinas, you're running in a newly formed district in Oregon. Talk about what you're seeing on the ground and the challenges of trying to reach this new audience.
Yeah, so thank you. What we're seeing on the ground is exactly what President Obama stated, right? People want to know who is fighting for me, on these economic issues, on gas prices, on grocery prices, on economic freedom. And I include abortion in that economic freedom, because if you cannot choose whether and when to get pregnant, you are not free of those economic constraints. So I would say, people are asking me that, and I'm telling them I've delivered, and my opponent is an empty shell who is only for himself. He is in this for himself. He is not in it for anybody on the ground. And voters want to know that their elected officials are going to Washington, D.C. to actually represent them. And I do believe that, people are not pushing back hard enough. And I think, sometimes we're not seeing the press actually ask, well, what is your plan? Mr. Republican candidate, what is your plan to get this done? Because I have a plan, and I've been talking to voters directly about what that plan is. And they're going to start making sure that they're filling out their ballots and getting those ballots in.
All right, candidates, please stick around. After the break, we're going to continue